Hello everyone, it is me, Pui. My hair is gray now, and welcome to the Academy. We got some more GOAT format content coming for you today, but first I want to thank you all so much for 70 subscribers in one video. That's right, we hit over 70 subscribers in a single video. I absolutely cannot believe it. It is so much faster than I thought. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. Thank you for all your support. Anyone who isn't subscribed, what are you doing? If I can get 70 in one video, I am sure that I can get over 102. So if you're watching this right now, why aren't you subscribed yet? We got more GOAT format content coming. We've got some more Edison content coming. We've got current coming. We've got magic content coming. Pioneer, modern, standard, legacy. We might even have some Pokemon, and we've got video essays coming too. I'm talking never before seen TCG video essays. It's gonna be sick. You're gonna want to be there, so make sure you subscribe. In the meantime, I have to ask myself, what gameplay is gonna get me to 100 subscribers? Hard question, right? We're gonna have to consult the comments. What video could get me to 100 subscribers? I've got it. Let's go with Last Turn.
Last Turn? I hear you asking. What's that? Well, it's a lesser-known GOAT format combo deck named after the namesake Last Turn, a trap card that can only be activated on your opponent's turn when you have 1,000 or less life points. You choose one monster on your field. All cards on both players' hands and fields are sent to the graveyard, except for that one card. Then your opponent has the chance to special summon one monster from their deck, and those two monsters battle. If only one monster remains on the field, the player with that monster wins. If both remain on the field, it's a tie. You might be thinking, wow, this card sounds really bad. Your opponent can summon anything you want. It's quite likely they'll have something to beat us. Well, what if they can't summon something? What if, say, we have Chowkin the Spiritualist on the field? We send everything, we keep Chowkin, our opponent is prevented from special summoning, and they go to their end step with no monster, we win automatically. You might be asking, wow, this deck seems pretty cool. How haven't we seen it before? Well, the unfortunate answer is that Last Turn is semi-limited to 2, and as a result, Last Turn is a very difficult deck to pilot to any success in GO format. Our last major showing of Last Turn was found in GFC 11 by player Wawa. If you take a look at this deck, you'll see that it certainly funnels into the plan quite well. We've got our 3 Jowgins, we've got our 2 allowed Last Turns, we've got Wall of Revealing Light to reduce our life points to below 1,000 when the time comes, and we have in addition Non-Aggression Area, our card we can use in lieu of Jowgin to block summoning on our Last Turn combo. However, you might also notice that there are in the sideboard Stein, which can summon Last Warrior for similar effect as Jowgin, as well as Self-Destruct button to allow yourself to reset. Unfortunately, this deck is quite linear and its individual card quality is quite low. Wawa didn't have the greatest results, and no one really had any sort of showing with Last Turn since. In Worlds of 2021, I worked with my teammate Don't Copy, and we put together this. Adapted from an old list I had found far in his direct messages, this Last Turn does not play Wall of Revealing Light and only plays one Jowgin, favoring Stein. You see, Stein can pay 5,000 life points to summon the Last Warrior for a similar effect, meaning that our life points will be lowered by the Stein. How else can we lose life points? Well, that's what the entire point of the game is. Our opponent will be making us lose life points for us, and if they don't want to, we can attack into their own monsters. We have Scapegoats, which can deal damage equal to the attack and defensive monsters by simply flipping them into attack and crashing. Another common play in this deck is to get hit by something, say a Blade Knight or a Tribe-Infecting Virus, summon a tomato, crash the tomatoes into the virus, summon mount until you can play Stein, then activate Stein for Last Warrior till you're under 1,000 life points, set a Last Turn, maybe a Solemn Judgment, and wait until the magic happens on the standby phase. Simple as that. Unfortunately, this deck also wasn't quite cutting the mustard, because despite adding additional GOAT control style cards such as Metamorphosis, Tsukiyomi, and Scapegoat, the cards were still very hard stalling, and didn't have a lot to do if our life points were ever reduced below 5,000. We simply were still only playing a last turn deck, even if we had damage-based win conditions. And last turn decks are not good on their own because you're only playing 2 copies of the card. Even if you play a Cataphill Omen, what happens when it gets Nobleman? Instead, many players opt to slip last turn into another deck as an additional win condition, such as what we saw with Gojira in the Duelist Grounds Memorial Tournament. So, with that in mind, I adapted this deck into this. The deck we play today, Stein Last Turn. You see that we've removed the Metas and the Tsukiyomi for 2 copies of Enemy Controller and 2 copies of Mind Control. We've also removed 1 copy of Spirit Reaper and our Upstart Goblins for 3 Megamorph. And now, the deck is half Stein OTK. Your opponent both has to deal with a Stein for an Oz and a Megamorph to kill them, with many cards to get their set out of the way. And they also have to deal with a last turn kill. Stein can grab Last Warrior from another planet, or we can play Jaugen. Some amount of crashing and not paying will give us this last turn kill. The deck has multiple avenues of attack and is quite capable of stalling until it gets to the one it needs. The deck is quite scary. Looking at the side for this deck, we have a Cataphill Omen. Now hear me out. If we remove all but 1 Stein, add in Jaugens, Cats, and Walls, all of a sudden we are a more committed last turn deck in comparison to their Stein-based sideboard. It very much depends what our opponent's seen from our deck in Game 1 and what they could be expecting given how we side in Game 2. Other side cards include Trap Dust Shoot, to get rid of a lot of cards that are built-in answers to last turn, such as Sandgan, Sinister Serpent, and Night Assailant. We also have Book of Moon for problem cards such as Wanghu. We have 2 level limit Area B to help stop warriors. And in our trap-based combo deck, we play 2 Royal Decrees. Trust me, they come up. But I'm not gonna just play 1 game for you today. Oh, no, 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 no. In fact, I'm not gonna even play any games at all. You see, last Friday, I joined the 7 p.m. GOAT Format Friday tournament. I finished 2nd place with a 3-2 score, and those are the matches I'm gonna show you today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So after a bye in round 1, my first round opponent is Fancy Diesel, shout out to Damage Step. He's on Chaos Turbo, but it ain't your mama's Chaos Turbo. He's playing Raigeki Break over Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, he's playing Trap Dust Shoot in the main, and to my surprise, he's playing Morphing Jar, which comes up immediately in the 2nd turn of the game. He wins Rock, Paper, Scissors, he gets to go first, and starts off by setting 3, including a Morphing Jar. I decide to follow similar suit, setting Cyber Jar and Jar of Greed. My logic here on holding the Charity is that if the Cyber Jar resolves, Graceful Charity will allow me to further filter with a greater pool of cards. However, if the Cyber Jar is removed, I'll be able to use the Charity to recover postpartum. He does indeed remove the Cyber Jar, and he flips the Morphing Jar, getting rid of the Charity and the other 3 cards in my hand. I am not looking too hot now, and I am not feeling good about this Game 1. He simply hits me with the jar, and passes the turn knowing he's in an advantageous position. Off the top, I draw Pot of Greed. Quite a helpful recovery when he's now plussed me so hard. I play the pot, and off of it draw a 2nd Tomato and Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm doing a great job helping me recover here, given my Jar of Greed is what is set. So I play the jar. He destroys his own Morphing Jar to protect the jar from getting set face down, allowing me to reuse it again. I use my Jar of Greed to draw an additional card, and the field is clear. From here I decide to just do some nice stalling. I don't want to hurt myself too bad, I'm just trying to hold off until I can find a card that can win me the game. I imagine he'll get aggressive at some point, and then I can strike with either the Mystic Tomato into Stein into Megamorph, or I can hold off for last turn. He decides to destroy Scapegoat with his Breaker instead of Swords of Revealing Light, which I find interesting. And by interesting, I mean bad. I would have destroyed the swords there. Unable to do anything else for the turn, he passes. I draw last turn, and pass back. He draws again and reveals nothing. I draw again, and pass back. He draws again, sets a serpent, and my swords is destroyed. I draw a 2nd last turn. Oops, all win cons. All I need to do now is get into a position where he can't respond, and I should be able to take the game. I've got enough life points to use Stein and enough goat tokens to use Jaugen. Either way, I can take this game. I just need to find a way to remove the Raigeki breaks I've seen before. with no other choices, I simply set a Megamorph as a bluff, and sure enough, he has a mystical Space Typhoon to destroy it. Unfortunately for me, he finds Tribe Infecting Virus to destroy my goats. He attacks my face down and gets me another tomato, but to add insult to injury, he also has Regeki Brick to destroy the tomato, hitting me below 5,000 life points. All seems lost now, but I decide to hedge my bets and set the tomato. I also set both of my last turns. Looking back, I don't know why I did it, but it sure was helpful. So he makes the choice to attack my face down. I search Sand. He attacks my Sangan. I add Spirit Reaper. He attacks me directly with Kaiku, putting me under 1,000 and passes the turn. On my standby phase, he activates Trap Dust Shoot. And for some reason, he gets rid of Spirit Reaper instead of the Jowgen, almost as if him not seeing last turn was quite useful for my purposes. And with that, we go from tying the game up to winning. We use Giant Trunade in case he has any special set, summon Jowgen, and pass the turn. And he seems to not be aware of an important ruling involving Sinister Serpent. You see, if he was just patient enough, he would have been able to add Sinister Serpent back to his hand in standby phase. I wasn't able to wait until main phase like you're supposed to playing last turn because he had Tribe Infecting Virus on the field and could use priority to destroy my Jowgen. Luckily for me, he both didn't get rid of my Jowgen with Dust Shoot and didn't use Serpent's effect in standby phase, showing that this deck's greatest weapon is its element of surprise and people's unpreparedness to play against it, combined with the diversity of strategies. Going into Game 2, I commit a lot harder to the last turn side of things, given that Chaos Turbo has a hard time getting through, and he seems to be playing a particularly high amount of aggressive monsters. He sets one monster. I decide to go with the defense position Tomato, using Level Limit Area B. This is a trick I learned from playing Panda that's very useful defensively, because it gives you both a ready recruiter, protects you from damage, and your opponent can't use level 4 monsters to attack you. Unfortunately, he has exactly the outs for all of this. He uses Tsukiyomi to set down my tomato, then uses Nobleman to get rid of it, and flips a level 3 Sangan to attack me. All's fine and all's good, I just have to draw into what I need. I still got plenty of protection, I can afford to have this Sangan hit me a little more. So the Sangan hits me again. After using a Dust Shoot to no avail, I set Scapegoats, he finds Graceful Charity, then he finds Pot of Greed, and all of a sudden things are looking not so good. I allow him to hit me with the Sangan, now cutting myself off of Stein, because I am an idiot. Keep trying to turtle, and fortunately for me, when I play the swords, he only gets one Faith activation off of it, and not 2 from Tsukiyomi flipping it back down. Yay! From here, everything devolves into a snowball of advantage as I slowly get picked apart. He plays another missed Dust Shoot, which sounds like a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing, because it means I haven't drawn any monsters. He finds another duo, recurs another Graceful Charity, and slowly destroys me. Going into Game 3, our hand is an absolute beauty. We truly have everything we need to win. I'm on the play, and with lack of better option, I simply set a Cat of Ill Omen and Solemn Judgment as protection. My opponent uses Tribe Infecting Virus and attacks with the cat. Having all the traps we need, I decide to get an additional Solemn, put it on the top of my deck for additional protection against my opponent's hand, and this turns out to be very, very handy. He sets simply Royal Decree, and going into my turn, I attack with Virus, and he leaves the game. Unfortunately, DB had some issues and he got forced out of the game on his own. However, looking at the board state, we can see very clearly that I have everything I need to win. Following that attack, I'm going to take 200 damage and summon Cyberstein as a result. Following that, in main 2, I'll activate the effect of Cyberstein to summon Last Warrior, going down another 2,000 life points. I'll set all of my cards, and when he activates Decree, I'll activate Solemn. In his standby phase, I'll use my Ring of Destruction to destroy his virus so that he can't use priority to destroy my Last Warrior in main 1. After he makes any move in main phase 1, I'll simply activate Wall of Revealing Light and Last Turn with backup from Solemn Judgment. This game is as good as won. GG Fancy. Round 2 is against Blue Jay, who I've been warned is on Warriors, one of this deck's worst matchups on account of their ability to simply plow through our defenses, Dust Shoot our monsters, and Solemn our win cons. But fortunately for me, I have the play and I am feeling hopeful. In my opening hand, I have both Jowgen and Last Turn, as well as Scapegoat to lose life, and I am feeling quite good knowing he doesn't know what I'm on. I simply set Scapegoat and Jar as well as Reaper and pass back to him. He attacks into my Reaper, it's not destroyed, he sets it and passes the turn. Like a dummy, I don't activate my Scapegoats on his end step. If I were to have, I would be able to attack them all into his Blade Knight, summon Jowgen, and win the game right on the spot. He had a Book of Moon in hand to stop me. So in a way, it's a blessing in disguise. I instead opt to use Jar of Green in my main phase, and on the end of my turn, he uses MST on my goats, so I chain it in response. Going into his turn, he summons Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke into my Spirit Reaper, attacks another token with my Blade Knight, sets the Book of Moon, and passes the turn. Not knowing the matchup, he's failed to realize that Book of Moon is a lot more helpful in his hand than on the field. I Heavy Storm the Book of Moon, and here things get interesting. You see, I have to somehow lose 7,000 or more life in a single set of attacks. I have to get creative, and I have a lot of options in the form of Megamorph. You see, if my life points are lower, then an opponent's monster will also have their attack doubled as if it was my own. So, knowing this, I activate Megamorph on Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke, and attack it with a goat. After I've lost 1,800 life points, my life points are now lower, boosting it up to 3,600 attack. The second attack deals me 3,600 damage, and then attacking into Blade Knight, I'm down to exactly 1,000. At that point, I simply activate Jowgen's effect with Last Turn in the standby phase, and that's a wrap. Going into game 2, I have both Scapegoat and Jowgen in my hand, and I'm feeling quite good, unaware that his hand is also very, very strong. After a small misplay of sending his own Rhoda to the graveyard, he ends with a Blade Knight set to pass. I respond back by card destructioning my hand. It's good, but we could do better. Afterwards, I draw Last Turn, a Morphing Jar, a Level Limit Area B, and 2 Mystic Tomatoes. This time I elect to set the Mystic Tomato, likely out of fear of Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke. He, of course, happens to have a Mystical Space Typhoon for my level limit, and so he summons 2 Blade Knights and attacks into my tomato. Then once again, I summon Cyberstein, and it appears that it's been uninterrupted going into my main phase. Using priority, I summon King Dragoon. There are very few cards in his deck that can actually stop this. It's certainly not Solemn. But it does happen to be DD Warrior Lady, which he draws off the top. Course. Left entirely defenseless, I set another tomato, hoping to cover my face. He summons Sasuke, attacks it to my tomato. I summon Sangan, he attacks the Sangan, uses Call of the Haunted for Blade Knight, and that's gonna be exactly enough to kill me. That's more how the matchup is expected to go, but I'm hopeful for game 3. Opting to go with my Royal Decrees to block his traps and go for a Stein OTK, I summon Sangan in hopes to grab a Stein. He not only uses Delinquent Duo on me, but also summons King Tiger Wanghu, one of the cards this deck is least able to defeat. Fortunately for me, he has no answer to my Sangan, and I get to add Cyberjar to my hand. I simply play swords to block a Mystic Swordsman if that's at all possible, set Cyberjar and pray that he doesn't have a Nobleman. He top decks Pot of Greed into an Exiled Force. By all rights, he should be winning this game, but he makes the dire mistake of summoning Exiled Force into King Tiger Wanghu. For those of you who don't know, you can't use priority through King Tiger Wanghu, and his Exiled Force is immediately destroyed for no effect. Reading a Solemn Judgment here, I use Giant Trunade and activate my Cyberjar, thinking that with Last Turn I should be able to win the game. And of course, my hand of new 5 cards has not a single monster in it. His, on the other hand, has 3. What's a girl to do? Beats me. All I can do is play the Swords of Revealing Light with a little bit of backup and hope for the best. He, of course, has Breaker the Magical Warrior, which I have to book down to prevent from destroying my swords. Knowing the Mystical Space Typhoon's gone, I feel safe. He tries to Dust Shoot, but I have no monsters. Then I go Charity, and he Solemns that. It was perhaps arguable that I could use Storm before Charity, but I was very scared of having to destroy my own Swords of Revealing Light just to draw some cards. I decided to be patient instead. Looking back, this might not have been the best option. He simply flip summon the Breaker and pass back to me, and I draw Mystic Tomato, putting me in position to win. This time I have to get creative once again, and instead of using Megamorph to double his monster, I use it to half my own. After playing Heavy Storm, I summon Mystic Tomato and equip it with Megamorph to put it down to 700 attack. Attacking it into Sasuke deals me 1100 damage, and then the additional 2 tomatoes I attack with deal another 800, giving me exactly enough to summon Stein, pay another 5000, and use Last Turn with Solemn backup for game. My My round 3 opponent is Birdman, who I know is on Panda burn from previous knowledge. People think that this is this deck's worst matchup. Even I thought that, but the more I play it, the more it doesn't seem to be the case. He gets the play, and starts off with summoning a Breaker the Magical Warrior and setting one Burn Trap. I decide to set Sandgan and Enemy Controller in hopes that I can use Controller to steal his Breaker and go for a Stein Morph play next turn. I'm an absolute idiot, and I forget that his Breaker still has a counter. So in main, he tries to destroy my Enemy Controller, so I sacrifice Sandgan and chain it to steal his Breaker as defense on my turn. I add Cyberstein to my hand as originally intended, and he summons Rat and plays Level Limit Area B to stall. The Breaker returns to him and it's my turn. I draw a second Megamorph.
This card is useless.
I simply set Cyberjar, hoping I could make a big play at some point and pass to him. He passes back. I play Giant Trunade. The plan here is to flip Cyberjar to clear his field so that I could potentially use a Stein Morph kill. But he makes the mistake of chaining Burn. Burn is good against last turn because we have to reduce our life points below 1,000, and then you can burn and chain. But if you reduce our life points earlier, it's actually quite good for us, as you can now observe. Instead of flipping the Cyberjar, I summon Cyberstein, attack into his Giant Rat, use the effect to summon Last Warrior, and I have 850 life points to use last turn in his standby phase. On to game 2. Going into game 2, we have a somewhat mediocre hand, and as does he. He draws a second Nobleman of Crossout, simply sets 2, and passes the turn. Fortunately, I draw a Pot of Greed into Jowgen and Trap Dust Shoot. Now all we need is the last turn and we can get the kill with the wall and the Jowgen. I decide to set everything but Ring and activate Swords of Revealing Light, showing me that his monster is Cypher Soldier. I figured that I can protect myself pretty well against his defenses with all the cards I have. I activate Trap Dust Shoot to get a peek in his hand, and now I know he's in just as bad a spot as I am. This is gonna be a long one. He activates a Nightmare Wheel in the standby phase just to get some passive burn against my Jowgen. I'm not having any issue with that, so I just take the 500. On my turn, I draw Royal Decree. That's right, I brought in Royal Decree despite having 4 traps. I set the Decree and pass back to him. I activate the Royal Decree to protect myself from the wheel damage. In my main, I change Jowgen to defense and take my 1 turn of Swords left to try and see if I can find something better. He draws a second Level Limit Area B and passes back. The Swords is going to be gone. I set Enemy Controller as a way to fend off the Cypher Soldier. If I can keep this Jowgen on the field, I'd like to. And I also set Cyberjar as a potential way to go off even harder. He sets a monster, then knocks my Cyberjar. Then he uses Giant Trunade, attempting to get rid of Mike so that he can go in for a safe attack. I chain Enemy Controller, switching his Cypher Soldier's defense. Maybe he shouldn't have switched it to attack before using his Trunade. He tries to give it to me because he can't tell what's going on. I change it to defense and give it back. He realizes his mistake after trying to flip summon the summoned rat and change to attack the already changed Cypher Soldier. With nothing else to do, he simply sets his cards again and passes the turn. I use his Level Limit Area B to summon a face-up defense position Tomato, and set all my cards once again, except for Giant Trunade. He once again tries to use Nightmare Wheel, and I allow it this time, knowing I'm going to need my traps. If he uses Burn Traps, I can use the Decree then. He goes for attack on Cypher Soldier, and now that my Decree is down, I can use Ring of Destruction to get rid of it. We're still in a safe zone, because if he ever does use his Burn Traps, I can flip the Decree again. He uses Exiled Force and finally gets rid of this Jowgen. In reality, the Jowgen was never that important in the first place, but I sure made him think it was, and that was very useful for me in the long run. I find a Cat of Ill Omen, so I decide to set it, and if I can flip it up, I'll search for last turn to close out the game. In the end, he ends up summoning Panda and attacking both into Cat, followed by Rat into Sandgan to get me another Jowgen. I used the Royal Decree to protect myself from burn damage, and he nonetheless goes for the same line. I have everything I need set in standby phase, and games closed out easy as that after I solemn his Book of Moon.
Is all the gameplay I have to show you today. I'd love to show you me going 0-2 against Geisty in the Grand Finals, but I didn't have time to edit that. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Seriously, guys, it was absolutely brutal.
In all seriousness, though, let's talk about the deck. Clearly, I wasn't playing my absolute best, and neither was my opponents. I think that demonstrates both that the deck can do a lot more in capable hands, and that the deck is very difficult to play around. At the same time, I think last turn is still constricted in the ways it is, but the deck is very young and can be taken in many more directions. I think some of the chaos control aspects that were put in the third list I showed off, or the Gojira list, could both be integrated in some way if someone was willing. I think there are different answers to the threats. I think there are different threats you could put in to be answered. I think you could change the packages, the quantities. I think the deck has a lot of places to go if you're willing to take it there. The deck is a lot of fun to play, certainly quite unpredictable and explosive as it steals some nasty wins, so if you want to, feel free to take it for a spin. For now, I've been Pui, thank you for coming to the Academy, and I hope you have a lovely day.